Okay, so now we're looking at Woodwork 3, question number 16. This is about drawing traces. So let's jump straight into the first one. First one we have y equals to negative 1.9. The way that we do this is simply subbing the values inside the function. So in this case, we have negative 2 times negative 1.9 squared, which is just 1.9 squared, x over 6 minus 1 over 6 x to x cubed. So it's fairly obvious that this should be an odd function, which means it's not going to be symmetric across the y-axis. So number D and B and D are eliminated from our available choices. Now, what's different from number A and C is the level, it's basically the slope of each graph. So how do we identify which graph is the correct match for our function? We can simply do this by plotting points. Okay, so let's set x equals to 1. So in this case, we have negative 1 over 3 times 1.9 squared minus 1 over 6. Okay, so it's not a completely unreasonable assumption to sort of approximate 1.9 in as 2 in this question. Okay, so we have 1 over 3 times 4 minus 1 over 6. This will give us negative 4 over 3 plus 1 over 6, which equals to negative 6. This times 2, 8 plus 1 equals to negative 9 over 6 equals to negative 3 over 4. Okay, so clearly at C, in the graph C, when x equals to 1, it's going to be less than, y is going to be larger than negative 1. Okay, and in this graph, when x equals to 1, y is going to be somewhat near to negative 4 over 3. So this question, this answer is A for this question. Okay, so notice what we did there. We simply subbed in the value of y into the function expressed as dependent on x and y, and now the function is only dependent on x. So what we're plotting here is this axis as x and this axis as a function of x and y, where y is no longer relevant. Okay, we do this for the rest of the questions as well. So the trace curve for x equals to negative 0.5, we have negative 2 times negative 1 over 2 y squared over 6 plus, or yeah, it's minus actually 6 over negative 1 over 2 to the cube. Okay, so this is going to give us, this is negative 1, negative cancels out, 1 over 6 y squared minus, actually it will be plus in this case, 1 over 8 over 6, which would be 6 over 8. Okay, so this is clearly an even function, so it's either B or D. But since we know the sign before y squared is positive, so it has to be D. It cannot be B because B is concaved in another direction. Okay. Now let's look into the third one. The third one is y equals to 0.55. Okay, so in that case, we already know it's going, whatever value of y we sub in, we're always going to have a function that's going to look like negative ax to the cube minus bx, right? So that's always going to be an odd function. So we're choosing between A and C, and A is already taken. It's like not possible for them to have the same value at x equals to 1, so it has to be C. And then we can sort of still eyeball it for the fourth question. We know that the sign before y squared is going to be negative when x is equal to 1.25. So we don't need to do any more calculations and directly conclude that the graph we want is B. So that's it for this question. If you have any other concerns, feel free to post on Piazza or come to our office hour.